So let's think about this from the perspective of Samson, yeah? We all know the story of Samson, Delilah, blah, blah, blah. So Samson, yeah, is a myth, a legend story in the Bible of a man of great strength, yeah? He was a Nazarite, He had the hair, consecrated from birth, i.e. he's the one, just like you are the one in your reality. Okay, cool. But he was essentially undone by the love of his life, quote unquote, which basically is a mirror reflection of his own lack of inner integration. Let's get to that. I'm going to show you how Samson betrayed himself. It wasn't Delilah. Now, we know the story of Samson, this guy, blah, 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 blah. He was very powerful, but he lacked inner mastery. Yeah, he wasn't a master of his strength. Yeah, he had the divine strength, but he didn't have discernment. Yeah, he usually acted out of passion rather than purpose. Yeah, and essentially that, because if you read the story of Samson well in the Bible, yeah, most Christians haven't, they just fucking glaze over it. But if you actually read the story, it talks about the fact that Samson used to do silly things. He would gamble, yeah. Samson will gamble. He was reckless, yeah. He was reckless, really. If you actually read the story and dissect it, he was very reckless and he acted out of passion, It was almost like he had all this potential, but it was misaligned with a mission because he wasn't actually on his purpose. It's like you have this Herculean strength, but you're not actually on a purpose and you're just fucking doing stupid shit, basically. Yeah. So think about it. The first betrayal of Samson, yeah, and him betraying his calling, was he was given that strength in order to defeat the enemies of his people. That was why he was given that strength. That's why he came into the sim. Yeah. So in that case, it would be the Philistines. Yeah. Cool. So he didn't actually do that. That was the first betrayal. That's the first time he left his own post as a sovereign. He put his crown down and left his post. Second time he left his post, yeah, was when he met Delilah, and people, his friends and family, his council, told him, hey, she's a Philistine girl, blah, 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 blah. He didn't listen. The second time he leaves his own post, yeah, he puts his crown down. Yeah, he's walking towards the mirror. Okay. The third time he betrays himself. Yeah, because remember, Delilah is the mirror, similar to how Judas was the mirror for Jesus. Yeah. So she isn't just a woman. She is the kind of, if you like, let's call her the symbolic expression of his unhealed wounds. Yeah. She reflects the parts of his unintegrated side to himself. Yeah. So she presented to him the temptation of comfort, lust, yeah, the yearning to be seen and loved without fully loving or seeing himself. Because whatever Delilah could have given him, he could have given himself. But he had convinced himself that only she could give that to him. That's why he was attached to that image. He's left his post 3 times now. He's betrayed himself 3 times. Listen to what I'm saying. He has betrayed himself 3 times. As a sovereign. Cool. Now, the 4th time he betrays himself, she repeatedly asks for his secret, yeah? Then he toys around with her like, oh, he lies, and then he says, oh, it's my, bound me up in with threads or whatever, do this. And then when that happens, yeah, he betrays himself again, because why is she seeking the source of your strength? If she loves you, she doesn't need to know that. Because she's under your protection, right? She's aligned with you. So what's the relevance? And in fact, in one such instance, she actually had people ready there to capture Samson, but he defeated them. So he betrays himself once again. The signs are literally there. It's a calling card from within. Samson, you are in an illusion. This is an illusion. Get the fuck out of the illusion. Samson's not listening. He's walking deeper and deeper and deeper into the mirror. He's in the constructed reality, the illusion. So she told us, and then eventually she's like, oh, if you don't tell me, you're gonna hurt me, and I'm gonna be sad. So the truth is, he knows she's not safe. He knows she's not the one. He knows this. He's had how many opportunities now? Good. So this is treachery. This is what you can call perfidy, if you like. Yeah, self-inflicted betrayal disguised as love. So he actually inflicted it on himself. So eventually, when he tells her the truth, and Delilah has him captured and his eyes ripped out and all the rest of it, and in prison and shit, his hair cut and everything. I don't want to, what can I use? To the less astute observer, yeah? Or the less, or somebody with, a limited awareness. They will point fingers at Delilah for being the betrayer. Yeah? But she didn't do that. Delilah couldn't have betrayed Samson if Samson hadn't betrayed himself. Pause. Go back to Jesus and Judas. Had Jesus not clung onto the fear of, his ego, clung onto, maybe loss of control, power and fear and all the rest of it, his mirror wouldn't have reflected that back to him. And I know you say, well, how can Jesus have an ego? Because he had disciples. He needed that validation. It's a fact. He's a prophet. He's an actualized being. He doesn't even need people around him. He's whole. Do you understand? Yeah? Put down your nets and I'll make you fishers of men. Transactional. If you guys actually spend time reading a book, called the Bible, you guys need to read it from a very high level of awareness, and you see all the codes. It's a code book. Okay? Right, let me get back to Samson. So, Delilah represented his unintegrated self, the idealized version of himself, something that he hadn't given himself, and he was seeking it from this illusion, right? And what did he do? He handed over the keys to his power. He gave her the truth of his strength. And that's what most people do. I've done that. Handed over the keys to my fucking power. Yeah, left my post because you want to go and save somebody that's drowning in the high seas because you think that you came here to save people in the ocean. Stupidity. You pay for it because that's not your purpose. I didn't come here to save people. Fuck them. I haven't even saved myself. Why am I saving you? Focus on your purpose. If they're drowning and they have a sob story, let them drown. Bro, it's a fact. Because listen, everybody has a purpose here, yeah? If you see somebody drowning, there's a reason why they're drowning and not on their purpose, yeah? You didn't come here to save people. Believe what you want. So in the end, he hands over the keys to his power, yeah? And, gave her the truth of all his strength, yeah? After ignoring all the signs, all the red flags, all the warnings from his true inner self. So the one who revealed Samson's secret was the one who also shaved his head. Let me say that one more time. The one who revealed his secret is the same one who shaved his head. So who betrayed Samson? Because had he not given up the secret, his hair would have been intact and he would have had his strength, right? So who betrayed who? He had how many warnings knowing that she wasn't safe? How many? He left his post to go and save somebody, yeah? To go and play lovey-dovey. Do you understand? Attachment to illusion, attachment to, images, narcissism, yeah? So this then brings us to the point where, it reveals the truth of self-betrayal. Now, this is where we all need to take accountability because we actually give others the scissors to cut what we refuse to protect. We actually give them the knife to stab us in our back. We do that. Not them, because the knife is in our hand and we hand it over to them and then they stab you in the back. You're like, what the fuck? How you stabbing me in my back? They should really turn around and say, because you gave me the knife, you dumb fucking fuck. You understand? Now, here's where the story gets interesting, because we can always redeem ourselves through the collapse of the ego, yeah? So when you have a dark night of the soul, egoic collapse, whatever it is, yeah? That's the opportunity for us to redeem ourselves, yeah? So once he was stripped of his strength, blinded, imprisoned, yeah? What does Samson do? He returns back to his inner sanctum. He returns back to his post. He picks his crown up again, even though he is in his lowest point. He calls out to his quote unquote father, yeah? Consciousness. He goes back to the thing that's energizing him. Yeah? And then what happens? His hair regrows. His vision is gone, but his inner sight is there. Do you understand? And at that point, what happens? He pulls down the pillars. Sidebar, sidebar, sidebar. You guys need to research the two pillars actually, because it'll help you understand more of how this reality works and how your mind works. Yeah, this is why the Masons love their two pillars. You know, Jachin and Boaz. It's not accidental. Yeah, the reason why he was stood between two pillars is not arbitrary. They didn't just make it up. Yeah, it's significant. Look into that sort of stuff. You learn a lot. Now, he's put in front of the Philistine people, and he stood between the two pillars. Right? It's symbolic. Yeah. And then what does he do in his final act? It wasn't revenge, but the return to his purpose. He pulls down the pillars, killing everybody, including Delilah. Fuck it off. Kills himself in the process. Let me die with the Philistines. He said, yeah. Now think about it. Yeah. So the translation to that really is, let the old self die with its enemies. Let the old self die with the ego. This is resurrection through destruction. The same thing that happened to Jesus Christ, bro. The ego dies, the avatar ends, but what happens? The king, the sovereign, the queen returns. This game is a game. Now, check this out. Check this out. I want you to actually pay attention to something. You know, I mentioned initially that Samson had power without kind of inner mastery, right? He wasn't really following a purpose. He wasn't really on a purpose. He was acting more out of passion rather than purpose, right? In the end, when he kills the Philistines, right, that becomes apparent, because killing the Philistines, they represent the ego. That should have been his purpose from the get-go, because had he actually done away with them in the beginning, the ego wouldn't have been able to beguile him through Delilah. Do you see? For him to get attached to it. The ego can't get you to do anything. It can only beguile you. Go back to Genesis and the serpent. It can only beguile. Yeah? It can lure you. The Pied Piper. Yeah? It can draw you in. But it can't do anything else. Everything else you have to do to yourself. Because why? You are the sovereign. So had he actually had a purpose, I'm a Nazarite, yeah? I have the hair, I have the power, I'm the one here, blah, 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 blah. It's my job to protect my people. If I lay waste to the enemies of my people, i.e. the Philistines, yeah, it's all allegorical. I'm not advocating actually, but in actual fact, in that sense, had he laid waste to his ego as his purpose, there wouldn't have been the opportunity for him to actually go through all of that. He would have gone through it. He would have individuated through a different path, because his purpose would have been the thing that actually gave him validation. He wouldn't have needed validation from a woman. He wouldn't need the comfort, and he wouldn't be, fucking spunking his fucking load everywhere. Yeah. Because he would have been more focused on validating himself through his purpose. And that would have done away with his ego. So it wouldn't have had the opportunity to beguile him and destroy him. Do you understand? But it's a lesson for us anyway. So in Samson's story, Delilah is not the enemy in the same way that Judas is not the enemy. The enemy is unawareness. In fact, Jesus is slightly different because he was actually aware that it was going to happen, because he knew that he still had those elements within him. That's why he expected the betrayal. You've been given power here, bro. If you don't find and follow your purpose, and you're there fucking looking for bullshit, you will collapse. You will collapse. You will collapse. So if you're there using your power to go on endless side quests, bro, it's only a matter of time. You stay there. When you fall in love with a reflection, a projection, yeah, without discernment, it will lead to deception. If you have discernment and you realize what it is, naturally, that being will also realize what it is. And you guys will have the most blissful, amazing relationship without attachment. But you are attached at the same time. It's beautiful. Full experience without ego. You understand? Also, your strength is fortified, well, born firstly and fortified in the temple of surrender, when you actually have to return back to source, when you have to go on your knees, yeah? You know, die to the ego, die to the stories, die to the illusions. That's where you reclaim your shit, bro. You have to, the only way out is through, bro. Do you understand? So when you think about Samson, he was like the king who gave away his crown, bro. You know, left his post. Until the final moment when he realized that, oh shit, I am the temple. I'm in the temple. So I'm going to collapse the temple and do away with the ego. Do you see? So it's really interesting, yeah? So when you actually live life and you think, yeah, you know, you're there not following your purpose and you're just there reckless and doing stupid shit, there is a cost. You're going to pay for it, you know? So in my case, yeah, like I did all sorts of stupid things, affairs and all types of stupid things, yeah. And when I did the work, I remember back along, I was thinking to myself, like, how did I betray myself in this situation, you know? How did I do that? Where did the self-betrayal come from? You know, thinking that, you could actually, help somebody, or, all these like, just fucking reckless entanglements everywhere. Then I realized I betrayed myself by essentially, I didn't betray myself by not caring, yeah? But it was by abandoning my own throne to sit on the floor of someone else's broken palace. Do you understand? So you left your post as a sovereign, you put your crown down and went and sat in a broken palace, trying to rebuild that broken palace, knowing full well that you actually have a palace, you have a court, yeah? You have duties, you have things, you have a purpose. What do you think is going to happen to your kingdom, bro? Guys, I keep this stuff very practical and very real world because I want you to understand what's actually happening to you internally. Do you understand? So when you do things like that, the self-betrayal will show up in ways like, you have just misaligned vision. You understand? Because it's like, you know where you're supposed to go, but now you're in this strange space, right? And it's like, deep down in myself, I knew what kind of queen my kingdom required, yeah? I'm using a regal example because it helps to drive it home. One who matched my frequency, ambition, and depth. But instead of actually mirroring that and attracting that into my space, what did I do? I tried to upgrade someone who hadn't chosen themselves yet. You understand? You're trying to save somebody that's drowning. You're in a broken palace. Backward. And then that made me realize that there was a savior complex, right? And if you have a savior complex, what that does is it covers up loneliness, because that's what it actually was. That was the core thing, because it's like, you're there offering your light, not from overflow, but from a hunger, for wanting to be needed, wanting to be wanted, wanting to be loved. Yeah. And that opens up the door to self-sacrifice, which is disguised as compassion. Do you understand? I was betraying myself. Do you understand? And then I realized I was also kind of like trading potential for hope. Yeah. So you see potential in somebody. Yeah. But then it's like, because remember, you're interacting with the mirror. There's no her. It's just, anyway, I'm just telling you what I did. So in my situation, I saw the potential in a person, but I ignored that very pattern in my own self, So I had this desire to rewrite her story when mine was still unfinished because I wasn't actually on my purpose. And that's also a betrayal. In fact, that's treasonous to your soul. That's actually treason. You've left your post, put your crown down, gone into a broken palace, trying to rebuild it with your resources, yeah? Trying to do it, and trying to rewrite the story of another kingdom whilst yours is there. It's treasonous. As a king, you will be fucking dethroned. What is the dark night of the soul? As a sovereign, you will be dethroned. So tell me, what is the dark night of the soul in this context? Can you not see how the whole thing fits together? And then lastly, the attachment to the reflection, yeah? Because, naturally, there's a part of myself at the time that felt forgotten, yeah? Unloved or abandoned, yeah? So naturally, you will reflect that, and then in that, you're trying to heal somebody, but then it's not going to heal that thing inside of you because I haven't actually given myself that. How can it does, it's actually a crazy, it's massive cognitive dissonance, actually, madness, actually, so I was there chasing what I could rescue instead of what could rise with me. That's why I tell you, if somebody is drowning, you see a broken palace over there, brother, focus on your palace, focus on your kingdom. There's work to be done in your shit, bro. If you think you finished, yeah? Because for me, I tricked myself because it's like, oh yeah, maybe you have some resources. You got this, you got that, you got this, you got that. So you think you have this overflow so you can go and do that. Bro, you haven't finished. The work doesn't finish like that, bro. There's stuff you still got to do. There's stuff you have to do. Do you understand? So the short answer is yes. I left my post, And many of us do the same thing, crowning people that haven't earned the right for you for you to crown them. You put your purpose on pause to fulfill a fantasy, and that's how you betray yourself, But that was then, hopefully for me, at least that was then, and that version and this version, they can't even talk. Do you understand? It's like two different people. Do you understand? Your throne is still there. And it's just time for you to return, So the point is, don't sit there moping and wait. Oh my God, she betrayed me. Da, 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 da. You betrayed yourself. I've just showed you, yeah? With my example, Samson's example, Jesus' example, there are countless examples. You did it to yourself. Do you understand? You left your post, bro. If you leave your post, what do you think is going to happen? Even in the normal regal settings, yeah? It's a regal setting. What do you think is going to happen? Because the ego, that represents all the fucking vultures, yeah, and the spies and the people that want to, dethrone you. That's what the ego represents in this case. You have to keep things in check. You're not there. You're being driven by illusion and fantasy. Do you understand? So instead of, complaining that somebody's a narcissist, I've already said, if you think anyone's a narcissist, you are, because resonance exists, yeah? And two, you betrayed yourself. You actually did it to yourself. So who are you blaming? You're lost. So face facts, mature, grow up and evolve. Do you understand? So your focus needs to be on reclamation, yeah? Don't drown in anybody's storms. If they won't build a boat to save themselves, you're not life raft, yeah? You've got your own shit to focus on, Your purpose is not to save somebody. Why would you be put here then? It's stupid. Why would you be put here to save it's dumb. It's dumb. I don't mean it in a medical sense. I don't mean in a medical sense, So yeah, all betrayal is self-betrayal, okay? So stop betraying yourselves return back to your posts, return back to your kingdoms. Yeah. Dust off your crowns, sit down in your palaces and do the work. Yeah. If you think you finished your work, I'm sure if you go around your palace, you find places that cracks have emerged. There are cobwebs in a few corners there and there. There's places that need to be swept. There's, light fittings and glass that needs to be replaced. It's a constant work. Do you understand? Even in a normal building, you always have to do things. There's maintenance here. There's grass that needs to be cut. There's, plants that need to be watered, so on and so forth. Focus on your shit, bro. And if you do that, you actually get your shit to the right level and you're in your purpose. If you want to align with another kingdom or queendom, it will happen. It will happen. You wouldn't even know how it happened. You just one day wake up and be like, oh, how we actually, yeah. Trust me. Yeah. So do the work. Yeah. The Path of the Lone King episode. Is this 4? It's got to be 4, isn't it? 4. Oh yeah. I'm liking this series. It's dope. Yeah. All right, man. Peace. Cardio session now.